We've introduced a bunch of different data types. We have strings and integers and floats and booleans. We talked about arrays and associative arrays. It's a lot of stuff to kind of get your head wrapped around. So in this one, we're going to introduce something that we call either like a control structure, a conditional, or maybe some logic. But before we can talk about that, let's introduce a variable. And we're just going to say this variable is called isDone. And we're just going to set this to false right now. And so you can imagine that isDone is something that is dynamically set, and maybe it depends upon whether some process has completed, whether it's a process in our application, or maybe I am using some service to query the status of some external process. But regardless, the isDone is a Boolean, and right now it's set to false. So it's like a flag that says, hey, is this process done? And what I want to do is, based upon the status of that flag isDone, if it's true, maybe I want to do one thing. If it's false, I want to do something else. So let's write that logic. For that, we're going to introduce a statement called an if statement. So if I put in parentheses, and then I put in a set of brackets here. Okay, and let's just break this out a little bit. So I have an if statement, and I have some parentheses. And what I want to put inside these parentheses is a Boolean expression. So what an expression is, it's something that evaluates to either true or false. So right now I already have this variable. So we're just going to put the variable in there directly. And so now I have an if statement that has, if this is done, then I want to do something in here. And for now, we're just going to say echo done. How about that? Just like that. And just so we can see things more clear here, I'm going to put another echo statement. So this is just before the if statement, and we're going to echo out another thing. This is just after if. All right, so if you look at this program that we have here, I have this variable called isDone. It's set to false. I'm going to echo out this line here, so it should say, so I should echo this out all the time, just before the if. Then I have this if statement. If isDone is true, it's going to do whatever's inside here, and it's going to echo out done. And then it's going to echo out just after. So let's go ahead and run this and see what I get. All right, I got a little jammed up here. So it's all of this on one line. Oh, because I don't have a BR here. So let's put a BR here, and let's run that one more time. Yeah, right here. So I got my header, which is here. I got this just before the if statement right there, just after the if statement, but I do not have this done. So let's introduce another if statement. And again, it's this format. I have some expression here, but maybe I want to do something if it's not done. So I can say not, which is the exclamation. If this is not done, I could do something else. So let's say this is not done. And we'll put a BR right here. So now I have two if statements. I have one if it's done, and I have another if it's not done. And we're going to simplify this in a little bit, but let's follow along here for now. So if I run this now, I have just before the if, just after the if, and it's echoing not done. Now if I switch my Boolean to true, so now it is done, and I rerun this, now it says done. So now I'm getting this done. So right here. Now we can simplify this a little bit, because an if statement has usually an else part. We do if this is true, we do that, or we're going to do something else. Now instead of having this logic down here, what I can do is I can take this and I can move it up to here, and now that is exactly equivalent to having that extra if statement. It's a little bit cleaner too, right? So now if I rerun this should behave just like it did before. So it's saying done. If I switch my value to false, and now it says it's not done. I use these just before and just afters as kind of placeholders so you can see what was happening. I don't think we need those anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and just clean this up a little bit. We're going to get rid of that. We're going to get rid of this echo statement at the very bottom. All right, so now let's imagine a different scenario. Let's say that we have a rocket system and we're going to launch a rocket. But there's a number of different conditions that have to happen in order for this rocket to launch. And so maybe there's variables for each one of these conditions. Is the rocket fueled? And that can be a true or false. So let's just set it to false. We'll make up a few more. So maybe there's an igniter that ignites the rocket. So is the igniter ready? And we'll set that to false. So it doesn't look like it likes how I spelled igniter, but that's okay. a typo. I'm not sure that's really a word, but let's just use it. Maybe there's one more thing that we want to check before. Let's say there's a parachute deployment system that's going to deploy. The rocket's going to go up, parachute's going to deploy. And so maybe we have to check if the parachute. All right, so my camera just died a little bit, but I think I'm back to where it was before it died. So I created this third Boolean variable called isParachuteReady, and I set that to false also. So what I want is, I want to be able to shoot this rocket up, but I only want to shoot it up if the rocket's fueled, the igniter is ready, and the parachute is ready also. And I'm going to get rid of this isDone variable because we don't need that anymore. And what I want here is some expression, some Boolean expression. And when it's true, I'm going to say fire the rocket. And then when it's not true, we're going to say abort. All right, so those are my two things I want to do. So if this is true, I'm going to enter here and I say fire the rocket, otherwise I abort. All right, so before we talk about what has to go in here, let's talk about Boolean operations. And I'll just make some space here, and we're going to come back to this in a little bit. But a Boolean operation, there's an operation called and then we symbolize that in PHP by using this double ampersand. So the truth table for this thing looks like this. So if I say true and true, then this will be, the result is true. And in the PHP world, it would look like this: true and true is equal to true. So it's only true if both sides of the operand, which is and, are true. So that means if you see something like this, false and true, that would be false. Or if you see something like this, true and false, that would also be false. Or if you see something like this, false and false, that would be false also. So this operand and is only true if both sides are set to true. So both sides of the operand are set to true. You also have another operand called or. And in PHP, we're going to see that symbolized by this double pipe symbol. And it's just like how we talk. If A or B, then that means it's true. And the truth table would look like true or true. Yes, that's equal to true. Or you would have something like maybe false or true. Yes, that is equal to true because at least one operand is true. Or you could have true or false, and that would be equal to true also. Or you could have false or false, and that is equal to false because both sides of the or operand are false. So in this case, the or operand, you need at least one true element on one side of the or. In the and operand, you need both sides to be true. And those are the two kind of big Boolean operands, and or. One other operand that you'll see used often is the exclamation mark. What the exclamation mark is whatever's next, it converts it to the opposite of that. Not true is equal to false. And if you see something like this, not false, that's equal to true. The opposite of true, I mean, look, when you read this, it reads the opposite of true is equal to false. The opposite of false is equal to true. Now, these don't necessarily have to be true, but maybe they're variable names. So for example, we could write is fueled and is igniter ready. In this case, is fueled, that variable is set to false. Is igniter ready? This is set to false. And so we're going to have false, and that's going to be this case right here, and this is going to be false. And if somehow both of these set to true, then it would be true, and then we would set that to true. But it's not the case right now. We're just going to set these back to false. But I just wanted to show you an example of, it doesn't necessarily have to be we're using true or false, but we can use variable names in here. So given all of this, what do we want to put in our if statement? And just to keep everything kind of grouped together, I'm going to move the variables down here underneath all of that stuff about the Boolean operators. So I still have the Boolean operator in here, but now I have the variables down here. So what do I want right here? So I want to fire the rocket only when all three of these checks are in place. Is fueled, and is igniter ready, and is the parachute ready. Only under these conditions, if it's fueled, the igniter's ready, and the parachute's ready, then we should fire the rocket. Otherwise, we should abort. So let's save this. Let's go ahead and see what we get over here. Refresh this, and it says abort because all three of these are currently set to false. So let's say that we've fueled it up. So let's say that the fueling station is done, they've completed their work, and the rocket's fueled up. So that flag is now set to true. If we refresh this, it's set to abort still. Now the igniter crew has positioned the igniter, and that system's all set, so maybe that comes in as true. But if we refresh, we still get abort because we have the parachute not ready. And then the parachute team comes in, they check that parachute, and they say, yep, that's ready to go also. And so we save it, and we refresh, and now we can see that the rocket is fired. You can see when one of these is false, we get the abort signal. But it's not very useful because we don't really know why it aborted. And in a real application, we'd probably want some information shown that says, hey, this is aborted because of this. So down here, instead of just saying abort, maybe we want a little bit more information. So here's where you could nest a couple of ifs. So maybe we have if it's not fueled, then what we're going to do is we're going to write echo not fueled. And then underneath this, I can have another if statement. If not is igniter ready, echo not igniter ready. All right, so I can get that feedback. And then I can have one more. If it's not the parachute ready, I can echo not parachute ready. So now if I set these to all to false, so I'll reset the system. I run our code, so you can see it aborted, but now it's saying, hey, it's not fueled, it's not igniter ready, it's not a parachute ready. But if the fuel team comes in and says, yeah, we're ready to go, and I run this, we're going to see it's aborted, but it's not igniter ready and not parachute ready. If I enable an igniter, now it just says not parachute ready. And if I enable the parachute flag, and then now it'll fire the rocket. You know, we covered Boolean operators and, or, and the not symbol. And we also covered some expression here that in this particular expression was just the and operator. And in this example, we also had nested if statements. So inside this else, we have additional if statements. All right, let's do one more example here. I'm going to get rid of all of what we have. I'm just going to reset everything. And I'll refresh over here. I should just get that control structures and logic. And we're going to have a variable called color, and we're going to say color is red for now. And then maybe here we'll just echo out the color, and I'll put like a little prefix and maybe in there. Color is this. In fact, we'll call it the selected color. So now I have selected color is equal to red. And then maybe what I want to do now is, let's imagine an application where depending upon the color that was selected, we're going to do certain things. Here I can have an if statement. So if color is equal to red, I'm going to do one thing. And for now, or we'll just echo out red like this. And so now let's go ahead and rerun this again. And now we can see the selected color, it detected it was red. Now, what if maybe the selected color is blue? So if I rerun this again, in this particular case, it's going to say the selected color is blue, but I didn't do anything special. Like I showed before, we could always have another if. So if color is equal to blue. So you have already this kind of syntax that you can use, and that's certainly okay. That'll function, and you can see it says blue. The other thing that you can do is you have two if statements. You can convert this to an else if, so it's really a single if statement, but it has multiple conditions, right? So now if this condition holds, we're going to echo red. Else if this condition holds, we're going to echo blue. And so I can run it this way, and it should still say blue, and it does. And the advantage of this now is I can have another else. If I get all the way down to this else, I can say maybe it's an unsupported color. So I have this multiple branched if statement. If it's red, I'm going to echo red. If it's blue, I'm going to echo blue. Otherwise, now I have this condition here, and it's going to say unsupported color. If I refresh, it should still get blue, and I do. And if I change this to red, I should get red, and I do. And if I change this to, say, green, I should get my unsupported color. And this way of doing this, multiple branching on this if, is certainly valid, but I want to show you another option. Instead of building it like this, what I'm going to do is comment out this code, And I'm going to use something called a switch statement. So a switch statement has this syntax. So I put a variable in here, and the variable is going to be color. And then I can say a number of different cases. So if it's red, what I would like you to do is echo out what we had before, which is red. And then I need to use a break command because that's the end of this case. And then I can have another case, blue, and I would do the same thing. Echo out the blue. I would put my break command in there because that's the end of the break. And then instead of having an else, I have a default. Here I would echo out unsupported color, and then maybe I even want to echo out the color itself. So something like that. If I run this at red, the switch statement will come in here. Which case is this? It's the red case. I'm going to echo out red. So let's go ahead and see what we get here. And so you can see that we're getting the red. And if I switch this to blue, you see blue. If I switch this to some other color, it says unsupported color is green. So instead of having an if statement with multi-branch ifs, I can use a switch statement instead with different cases. So just to summarize, we covered the if statement, and we can have different branches of logic depending upon the value, whether it's true or not. And we also can do a very similar thing with a switch statement. And some of the differences here are, like, an if statement takes a Boolean expression. Here I have to put some Boolean operator and I can build an expression. It can be quite complex. We did with the rocket system. Is it fueled? Is the igniter ready? Is the parachute ready? So you can have that complex Boolean expression in there. With a switch statement, I have some variable and then I have the values. It has to have certain values. And so a switch statement and a if statement, sometimes you can replace them with each other, and other times you will not be able to. You'll have to use a switch or you'll have to use the if statement. But regardless, you now have a way to structure your logic and branch it out depending upon what the variable values are. You can do certain things.